Brent, hey, congratulations on your new film, Lord of Misrule.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just, I love your films for such a long time. Ever since Devil Inside and your first movie about video games. But tell us what attracted you initially to direct Lord of Misrule.
Well, it was definitely the script. I mean, I was working with my producing partner, James Tomlinson, and he was given the script and he just sent me a very simple message, which I think was like, you need to read this. It's good, or it's really good, or something like that. And within about 5 pages, which is very much how the movie opens, I was like, oh yeah, like I can already feel like this is a world. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers where the script continues to go, but the world and the characters and the instant kind of unsettling quality of it all, and just the mythology and the lore of these kind of villages in the UK, this pagan mythology, it's really, you know, drew me in, and then it just kind of took off from there.
What's amazing about watching your film was I actually thought this paganism, this Golgog, that I don't know. Ralph says it. I just like hearing Ralph say it in the film, but I actually thought it was real. I was like, start Googling it, and there it doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I mean, me too. That's one thing about the mythology of the movie is I was like, wow, this is a really complex mythology I'm not familiar with, yet it's easy to understand for me. You know what I mean? Like it's not like the way he wrote it. And then as we developed it more, I remember the first time I tried to search for Galagog thinking it was real. And I was like, you can't even really find the word. Like he made up almost a word. So he did an incredible job with that. And it is, when you get buried into the locals and kind of UK history, you find that there are a lot of similar mythologies, sort of. And they really do these festivals, and they really are sometimes very dark, and the masks, and it's all very just normal for them. Whereas for me, it's quite terrifying. But yeah, it was really unique, and that's, as I got into the script, also another thing that made me really excited about making the film.
So, what did you want to design first when you approached Lord of Misrule? Did you want to approach the mask first, or basically the Galagog?
The mask, because really, for me, not only is it the namesake of the movie, but it's, the Lord of Misrule is a true villain in the movie, even though thinks he's doing his god's bidding. So I knew that mask could be, like something iconic, in a way, or that's the hope, something that's head turning and unique, and that I saw on a poster, and or I could see on a poster. And so then creating it was a really fun, rewarding process that was, a lot more intensive than I think any of us expected it to be, because it could have been very easy that you can find a mask that's kind of fits what the Lord of Misrule could be. But creating this was extremely exciting, and it felt, like a unique something introduced into kind of pagan mythology or folk horror that was, unique and stood out, and hopefully terrifying in a way.
So, how did you perfectly cast Ralph into the role of the Lord of Misrule? I mean, like I said before, his voice is just simply terrifying when he talks and speaks.
It's amazing, and it's not something that he puts on. He was in town a couple months ago, and my girlfriend was like, first time she'd ever met him, and she's like, yeah, I'm just really freaked out because, like, he just talks that way, like, just always. It's just the way his voice sounds. So it's amazing, and it's great too for the trailer for our movie. Like, just utilizing dialogue from the film feels like a trailer guy doing a movie, but it's our movie. So it's a pretty interesting story because that character was written as like a 75-year-old woman. And we were trying to cast a woman in that role. And I knew I wanted Ralph in the movie. I'd worked with him, we're friends. And so when I went to London, we were trying to cast that character, and it wasn't coming easy. And I knew I wanted him to have a part, but he was probably too old to play the husband, and I didn't think that was a good enough part for him, perhaps. And so I went and I met with him, and I knew when I went to go meet with him that I wanted to ask him to play Jocelyn. And he said he goes, I'd love to, I'll do a cameo as the Green Man. And he had just come off the movie The Green Knight, and I thought that was pretty cool that he would offer to do that. And I said, well, what do you think about playing Jocelyn? And then he kind of just sat back, and then we just started talking. And it was such a, and even Tom, the writer, was like, well, I love Ralph, but I have to rewrite the whole character now. I wrote it as this female. And I was like, no, you don't have to change anything. Like, don't change a word. It's just going to be how he interprets this character. And you know, I can't see it any other way now. It allowed for such an interesting character. And even the name Jocelyn, we still refer to Jocelyn as a her, like I do if I'm talking about the movie, I call her her. And we were like, okay, we should change the name. And then he's like, well, Joss is kind of a guy's name. And then the next day we both just were like, you know what? We love Jocelyn. Let's just stick with Jocelyn. So, and then the crew and the producers, everybody, it was like, what are we doing? Oh, Ralph is going to play Jocelyn. And it changed the whole design of, obviously, the character and the wardrobe, and just it changed everything. But that's the fun of movies to me, is it's a process, and nothing's set in stone. It's just kind of the best idea wins.
Now, I know, like, these type of typical movies, when they like to introduce like a pious priest in a demonic or pagan type of film, it's usually like a male priest. Was it always a female reverend, in this case played by Tuppence, and she's great, by the way. What
Yeah.
was that always the intention?
The intention was always a female priest, and that was, once again, those first 5 pages of kind of going, oh, okay, so this is it was a fresh spin on it to me. It's a and like I said, I could imagine that, being that we changed Jocelyn to a man, that it could be pretty obvious that maybe we changed Rebecca from a man, but we didn't. It was always a woman, and it made it pretty different to me. I really like that aspect of it.
Now, tell us about the cinematography that you use for Lord of Misrule. I want to say, over the years and over a lot of different projects, you always have that certain horror approach. But what approach did you want for a film like this? Because, there was a lot of nighttime shoots in this one, a lot of outdoor shoots.
Yeah. Simon Rowling was the DP, and he had a great kind of take on how to, like I said, for me, it was really cool knowing I was going to be bringing in a brand new UK cast and crew, and working with a crew that I had never worked with before. And because anytime I do work with somebody from over there, they always blow me away. So I was like, I want to do a movie where everybody is from there. And so they have a really strong grasp of the lore of these kind of stories, because they all grow up around it. And there was a very specific set of rules that we followed in making this movie, like as far as the cinematography. It wasn't just about designing shots or scenes a certain way. It was about adhering to a very short list of rules that we had to. So anytime we had an idea that broke those rules, it had to really have a good reason to break those rules. And so, the town has a lot of energy at the beginning, and a lot of color, and these costumes. And then as soon as Grace is taken, you'll notice in the movie, it becomes much more still. And because it's an unnatural feeling for her, for Rebecca. And then for me, it was just keeping this, bringing to light this autumnal, harvest festival feel that descends into something that's, lit only by fire for reasons that play into the story. So it was the most specific in that way, and I really loved working this way. And we got to really, it's the first time I've worked with a single camera in over a decade. And you think that having two cameras is helpful because you can cover scenes twice as fast and get two shots. But I don't know that I'll ever use two cameras again, because it was just so much better to allow things to happen in the one. It's like shooting on film versus digital, it's like you have to lean into a vision even more so. And so it was really rewarding in that respect.
Most excellent. Well, Brent, let me leave with one last thought. There's always been a bit debate in the horror community, or the horror genre, is practical versus CGI. And we know, you bounced around in both aspects. Can you tell us which do you prefer and why?
I would say I really do prefer a blend, but you don't always get it one way or the other. I mean, there's been times I've worked with makeup teams that also are visual effects teams, in which case that's where all the best ideas happen, where it's this great marriage of the two. A lot of times it's either or. And in a movie like this, some of the design work gets such a short amount of time to prep this movie, and it was still COVID. It was still at the end of COVID, so we were all very separated for a lot of it. Creating certain aspects practically was just, it wasn't going to happen, and those have to be designed really perfectly in advance. So I really love that sometimes we can lean on visual effects to create things in post, as long as we are able to take the time and everybody's on the same page. But I would always prefer to be able to build everything in, whether it be a structure or a mask. But in The Boy, we put the mask on secondarily in post, and in this movie we designed it in advance. And so it's really just making sure that it's done the best it possibly can be done, and that hopefully the best visual effects are invisible to the audience. And it's not always that way. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's the goal. And hopefully in this movie, the two, what's real and what isn't, is a bit of a mystery to viewers.
Most excellent. Well, Brent, thank you very much for this conversation. I'm really hoping for more movies for you down the road, or maybe return to the roots of that found footage that was
really?
so popular.
Yes.
back then. I mean, I feel like that genre's dead, but maybe you'll bring it back someday, but who knows? Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much.